Hey everybody, so this is Gabriel Santos, and this video is a little different. It's not about me talking to the camera, it's more so about a useful technique for you guys to use to stop craving sweets or fast food, or really to stop craving anything that you don't want to do. So I used this technique recently, and I don't know if this is something other people use. I'm sure they do, but this is something I came up on with my own. So I call it the flowchart technique. And the best time to use this technique is when in the middle of your craving. So let's say you're sitting on your bed or at your desk chair, or maybe you're at work, or maybe you're driving in the car, or maybe you're watching TV. And the craving to drink a can of soda or drive to McDonald's and get a sweet tea with a McDouble, or to grab that bag of chips or that candy bar, is to stop yourself in that moment and to do this flowchart, right? So I'm going to use in this example a soda. So you start out with where you are. Craving. You can't really read that, huh? For soda, okay? That's your starting point. And the whole idea with this flow chart or this flow map is to see where your decisions will lead and sort of play out the future, and to then make your decision based on what's going to happen. Because what happens in the middle of a craving, right? If we don't say yes, or if we don't say no, and we say maybe, right, the craving intensifies, right, typically, right, and you imagine the pleasure of saying yes and pain of saying no, which ultimately will bring you to saying yes, right? Okay, so I typically like to go down the yes aisle, if you will, first. So if you say yes, you'll have 10 to 15 minutes of joy and satisfaction, right? Because that's what we want. That's why the craving's there. That's why it's so hard to say no, because 10 to 15 minutes of just stimulation and sugar and joy is what that craving is looking for, right? But then after that, depending on because this is your flow chart. For me, I'll have prolonged guilt, right, for having said yes to a soda when in my mind I know that it's not that good for me. And then I'll have, setback on health goals. And then lastly, I always put, there's not really that much space, potential binging, right? When I say yes to it once, I typically say yes again until it just becomes a destructive habit. So that's the yes side, right? And this 10 to 15 minutes is really what we see when we're just sitting in the craving. At least for me, and I think most people will agree. We see this 10 to 15 minutes of craving. We don't see the prolonged guilt. We don't see the setback on the health goals. The craving and the 10 to 15 minutes of joy and satisfaction are heavily linked. Right? And when we sit in the maybe zone, this yearning for joy and satisfaction gets bigger and bigger. Okay? Whereas if we say maybe, but we decide to, down here, create flowchart, which is what we're doing now. Chart. We typically will get ourselves to a no, okay? And what does no look like? no will look like 5 to 10 minutes of maybe dissatisfaction. I don't know if I'm spelling that right. Dissatisfaction, right? But then you'll have gained self-control. You'll be congruent, which means to be in aligned with, congruent with health goals. And then after that, you know, maybe I'll drink water. Okay. And this works for me, and I don't know if it'll work for, you know, other people. But what this whole exercise does for me is it allows me to see where these decisions will lead to. And, you know, in the heat of the craving, without doing this chart, my mind typically goes to seeing these two options right here. If I say no, I'm going to be dissatisfied. If I say yes, I'll be satisfied. And obviously, from a logical standpoint, I'd rather be satisfied than unsatisfied. But then when you take it to a whole nother level, if I say no, I'll have gained self-control. If I say yes, I'll have prolonged guilt. And then another level, if I say no, I'll be congruent with health goals. And if I say yes, I'll have a setback on my health goals. And then it gets even longer, you know? And obviously no one can make you do anything, but this typically just sort of disrupts the pattern of the craving and gets me away from just impulsively saying yes and drinking it because it's so easy. And so the idea is that for any type of craving, whether it's soda or whatever, what have you, and you're trying your best to make a change in your life, and in this case it would be to be healthier, then you would, you know, make this flow chart and see which one leads where. And the idea is just to be aware of what goes on for you, you know. When you say yes, what happens for you? Do you feel happy? Do you feel enlightened? Do you feel pleased? And how long does it take? 30 minutes, an hour? What do you feel afterwards, you know? This is for you. This is about you. This is my chart. It's to be aware of your chart and to really put on the piece of paper, you know, like what's going to happen? What's going on with me? And so, yeah, that was a long-winded way of explaining this flowchart method for how to stop cravings for sweets or soda or fast food. So yeah, I hope this helps out, guys. I hope this video was valuable to you and something that you can apply in your times of craving. This is Gabriel Santos. Peace.